Hello, hello, happy Friday, Setam Petak. I am Sarah of Expat in Croatia, and this is 5 Question Friday. Every Friday at 5 o'clock Croatia time, answer 5 questions about Croatia from people who have sent them in on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, expatinCroatia.com, email, our consulting sessions, and people who post them on a billboard on the Magistrala. Hello, what's going on? It's so nice to see you. I just got in. I drove about 800 kilometers today. I have seen all of Croatia, it feels like. So I've been in Rijeka for the last couple of days. It was an incredibly quick trip that was jam-packed with meetings, but really great. I love visiting Rijeka. I really do. It's such a great town. They've got all the decorations up for Carnival, which is happening on Sunday. I mean, there's a lot of events that happen over a period of time for Carnival, but they also call it Fasnik. But Sunday is going to be the main parade and celebration. And so one of our lawyers, maybe you have worked with her, named Antonella, who is so lovely. I had a 4-hour dinner with her last night, actually maybe even more. Her family always dresses up in costumes. And she's a fan of 5 Question Friday. If you watched when we did our 100th episode, she was on. So last year her family were cactuses, and this year they're going to be mushrooms. So I'm so excited to see their costumes this year. What else did I do? I met with our tax advisor. So some of you may have used one of our tax advisors named Sandra. She's amazing, excellent. I had a morning meeting with her and we talked taxes, and we're kind of preparing to do some videos about taxes. So I wanted to chat with her a little bit more in detail about that. But also I like to drop in whenever I'm in Rijeka. And then I had a wonderful lunch with the guy who started Surf and Fries. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, so we've got an interesting collaboration that's going to be coming up with him. Had some great meals. Oof. I mean, I gotta say the highlight was probably the one that I had with him. It was Hidden Wine Bistro. If you have not been there, if you ever go to Rijeka, you should definitely check it out. It was started by the youngest Croatian chef to ever earn a Michelin star. Really good. And it's not like little fancy food. It's not like that. But just so incredibly delicious. What else? So why did I drive 800 kilometers today? So Cam and I have been dropping hints probably over the last 9 months that we're working on a top secret project. We are still working on that top secret project. And so today I went from Rijeka to Labin in southeast Istria for like 30 minutes. And then I drove to Lika, like remote Lika. And then I drove back to Split. So in Rijeka and Istria, it was like sunshiny, blue skies, so gorgeous, warm. Lika was super cold and windy. And then once I got until Dalmatia, it was, rainy, also sunny at the same time. So yeah, so anyways, I just arrived. What else do I have to tell you? I think I covered it. Yes. Yeah. Oh, last week on 5 Question Friday, I told you about the changes to the law on foreigners, which we have been waiting on for months. So we're still waiting for the final act to be published in the National Gazette. And once we do that, we're going to comb through all of it and talk about it with the lawyers and everything. So that way we can do a post to tell you everything that's going on. But in last week's episode, I did go over some of the major changes that we are expecting. Some of them were in the news, which means that the ones that are in the news, they have some discussion with Parliament, and so those are pretty much confirmed, although we don't have the full picture of them. And I think that's important to understand. Like, you can have a bullet, but that doesn't mean anything. Like, you really need to see the full context in the law to fully understand, what they're saying, what the spirit of the law is. And then there's a rule book that's going to come out in about 6 months. It's going to help us understand how they're going to interpret the law. So there's a few steps that have to happen between then and now. And also we had our own back channel, which is how we found out about the digital nomad changes, which are pretty substantial. So if you missed that, go check out last week. I not only go over the changes, but I also give you my initial reaction to them based on my experience. So yeah, tons of fun. All right. So let's go ahead and dig into the questions, okay? So this first question comes from Charlene on email. Do you know if Croatia has a news network in English that us diaspora and expats can watch? That would be so helpful for those of us who are not familiar with the language yet. First of all, kudos on wanting to follow the news here. That's great. That's important. If you live here, you should follow the news. And yes, so HRT, which is the national public station, they have different versions of HRT or different channels for HRT 1, 2, 3, blah. So HRT 4, which is called Glas Hrvatske, I want to make sure I get the padaji right. That means Voice of Croatia. So on HRT 4, English news is aired at 11 p.m., Spanish at 6 a.m., and German at 9 p.m. So yeah, that's where you can find Croatian news in English. Okay? Also, in terms of finding English news in Croatian, we also, in our Tuesday newsletter, we do kind of recap a couple of the biggest actionable news items that are going to impact your daily life on a weekly basis. We summarize them in English for you as well. So, what can I send you? All right. So first, the link to HRT4. We have that, okay, because you can watch it in your browser, not just on the television. So if you're abroad, that's really good. That's great for Croatian diaspora. Then we do have a post on the most reputable news outlets. This goes for newspapers, online portals, and television. So we also have that we can send you. And then also subscribe to our Tuesday newsletter so you can get, the Croatian news that we send you. And also includes a wrap-up of our latest posts and a Croatian language lesson with audio, so you can hear what it's supposed to sound like. That audio is done by our editor-in-chief, Maria. Okay, so if you would like any of those things, if you're on Instagram, send us a DM. If you're on YouTube, look down in the description below. And everybody else, drop a comment. We will get it to you. All right? So, thank you, Charlene. The next question comes from Christina on the 5 Question Friday forum. Building a family house on agricultural land is allowed only if the plot is larger than a certain size. I believe 30,000 square meters for a 400 square meter house, for example. Is it possible to buy several adjacent smaller land plots to achieve that requirement and get permission to build a family house? So, I consulted with one of the property lawyers that we collaborate with to get this answer. So the answer in terms of combining those into one lot is yes, but that's only a general possibility, and I need to unpack it a little bit. So it all depends on the local zoning and the urbanistic plan. And that's going to vary depending on the municipality in Croatia. Okay. So you can't say a hard and fast rule. Yes, absolutely. You can buy a bunch of smaller plots and combine them into one parcel. Now, if you were to attempt this, you would first need to combine all the purchased plots into a single plot first. This is a separate procedure for which you would need a property lawyer. Okay. Keep in mind, you can't build a family house on agricultural land. You can only build an agricultural object. What is an agricultural object, you might wonder? So this is something that's little, 20 square meters. Sometimes it can be a little bit bigger. Again, it depends by the municipality, but it doesn't have a kitchen and it doesn't have toilets. So you're not allowed to build a family house. Now, there are some people who do that, but it's against the law, and it's getting harder and harder for people to be able to accomplish that legally. And if you are caught having built a family house illegally, they'll have you tear it down, which would be very expensive and unfortunate. So that's something to keep in mind. In this case, highly recommend you speak to a property lawyer who can properly advise you. I recommend a vetted one. I recommend the ones that we work with. So we do have a link that you can go to learn all about this lawyer network that we built and how we vetted them and the entire process, everything you need to know about it. And you can also request an introduction. So let us know if you would like that. And I saw hello from India. Hello. Hello from Split. Hi, Mary Ellen. It's so nice to see you. Okay. So next question comes from Ilyas on the 5 Question Friday forum. How can I insure my UK registered car in Croatia? I need it for 1 year only. Well, to get Croatian car insurance, you must have a car registered in Croatia. Now, you can only drive your foreign registered car in Croatia for a maximum of 90 days. After that, you have to register your car in Croatia. And during that process, you'll be able to obtain Croatian car insurance. So you can't get Croatian car insurance on a foreign car, and you can't drive a foreign car in Croatia for more than 90 days. So I've got 3 different links that we can send you: how to register a car in Croatia, how to get car insurance in Croatia, and a UK guide to driving in the UK guide to driving in the EU that we dug up. So we've got all of that for you if you would like it. Next question. This is anonymous on email. One thing I wonder about, as do friends, is the risk of earthquakes, especially in the Split area, given the recent earthquakes in Croatia. Some honest, realistic discussion of the risks, preparations, and how things would be handled would be great. Oh, goodness gracious, yes. So I'm going to tell you a few things about that, all right? So Croatia has a major fault line that extends from Split in the south to Karlovac in the north. As a result, Croatia does experience earthquakes from time to time. 2020 was a very prolific year for earthquakes, both large and small, especially in the northern part of the country in the area surrounding Zagreb. So Zagreb was hit in April 2020, and then there was another more severe earthquake in, I think, December 2020 that hit Sisak and Petrinja, which are about 50 kilometers south of Zagreb, okay? And they caused a lot of damage for which those areas still have not recovered, okay? Now, down here near Split, we do experience earthquakes as well. A couple of year can be felt by people. There have been times where people have felt them. I haven't felt them. And the epicenter is not necessarily always in Croatia. You know, you can have an earthquake that you feel in Croatia that the epicenter's in Bosnia, you know, or maybe even farther away is possible. They very rarely, if ever, cause damage, though, down here. I've been here 13 years, and I've never experienced an earthquake here that has caused damage. I will say I have experienced a lot of them here. It's not my first time dealing with earthquakes. I lived in Southern California for 3 years, and I also experienced earthquakes there, also ones that didn't really do any damage. The first time I had one, it felt like the building was about to explode because I was on the 5th floor and it just was coming up from the ground. It was a little scary, but it was okay. And then I remember there was one here. It was like 11 o'clock at night. I was in bed reading and I felt it and it was rumbling. And then I was like, all right, this isn't that big a deal. I don't need to do anything. But the stories I've heard from those who experienced those earthquakes in Zagreb and Sisak and Petrinja, it was really hard because that year there were a lot of earthquakes, a lot of small ones too, and they were really traumatizing for people, the big ones. And so as a result, every time they felt a small one, they just weren't sure if there was going to be another big one. That's really unsettling. So that's kind of the experiences I've had with earthquakes, people around me have had in the last few years. Again, in Split, we haven't had anything bad. So that's the experiences. Now, let's talk about prevention, all right? So not all buildings in Croatia are built to withstand earthquakes. Croatia did not start earthquake-proofing buildings until the 1960s after a 6.1 earthquake rocked Macedonia, killing over 1,000 people. So after the Homeland War, speculators moved into Croatia to build cheap housing en masse as the region transitioned from communism into capitalism. So if you're living in a building in Croatia, you want to check and see when it was built, because that is going to be the biggest indicator as to whether or not it was earthquake proof. So the building that I live in now, and the last building, so the last 2 buildings, which I've lived in, I guess, combination about 10 years, they were built in the late 60s. They are earthquake proof, which is why I feel quite safe whenever there's an earthquake here, and it doesn't really, the building doesn't really move. You hear a bit of a rumble, but that's about it. These buildings are built to last. And there are a few buildings in my neighborhood that were built with bomb shelters in the basements. If your building is not earthquake proof, either it was built before the 60s or after the Homeland War, then you're going to have to take some extra precautions. And I know that after the 2020 earthquake, there were a lot of recommendations, especially came from real estate agents that I was in contact with, that were suggesting that you don't get anything that isn't earthquake proof anymore in Zagreb. So something to keep in mind. Okay, it's important to understand that earthquakes don't kill people, debris kills people, okay? So the best way to prepare is with good planning. What should you consider? Have a preparedness kit ready all the time. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to prepare that. Make sure you're living with proper construction that is built to withstand earthquakes and that all the necessary repairs have been made. So it's not just about being in an earthquake-proof building. It's also about making sure that the necessary repairs have been done as well. Educate yourself about how to protect yourself before, during, and after an earthquake. And know all the emergency numbers. All right. I want to say it was in 2020, we created a guide that answers all of these questions. It is how to prepare for an earthquake in Croatia and how to deal with it during an earthquake and how to deal with it after an earthquake. It includes information on how to make that preparedness kit, what you should do during the earthquake, where you can hide yourself so that you can stay safe, what you should do after the earthquake. It really covers everything. We did a pretty deep dive on this. So we do have that. And I would suggest that everyone have it. And inside of that guide, there's a link to download a PDF. So that way you can store it on your phone all the time. So that way, if for some reason something catastrophic happens and the data is down, which also, it may not just be that something has killed the phone lines. It could also be that there's just the lines are jammed because so many people are trying to call out for help or call their family members. So having this PDF saved on your phone means you're always going to have this reference. It also includes all the emergency numbers that you need as well. So you have everything at the ready, okay? So that we can send you. We also have Croatia's site for earthquake resources, which is a site that they built after the 2020 earthquakes. And then we also have a separate post on expatinCroatia.com just with the emergency numbers. Some of them are going to be not relevant to earthquakes, like if you're lost in the forest or if you need some help on the sea or something like that. But it's all of them. And also that post has its own downloadable PDF of all of those numbers too, so you can save them on your phone or locally on your computer or something like that. So if you need any of that, send us a DM on Instagram, YouTube, it's down below in the description. Everybody else, drop us a comment and we will get those guides over to you. Our last question comes from Isa Marie. I hope I pronounced your first name right. On the 5 Question Friday forum. I am a Filipino citizen currently working here in Croatia, and I would like to ask about the pension system. If I complete my employment here and return to the Philippines or move to work in another country, am I eligible to receive any pension benefits or contributions I have made here? If so, what is the process for claiming or transferring these benefits? To receive a Croatian pension, usually you need to contribute to the system for at least 15 years, okay? If you do not meet this requirement, your contributions may still be accessible depending on the agreements between Croatia and the country that you are going to, okay? So for example, if you move to another EU country, then you might be able to transfer your pension contributions there. That's kind of part of the whole EU member state thing, okay? However, and I'm going to say a Croatian word here, and I want to make sure I tell you what it is before I finish this sentence. So in Croatia, you have 3 levels of pension, okay? And when you're employed in Croatia, your employer is required by law to contribute to the first 2. There's an exception, but that's only if you've been working in Croatia for like a long time before the second pension fund existed. But really now, if you're working here now, everyone has to be contributed to the first 2 funds, okay? So there's prvi stup and drugi stup and treći stup. So 1, 2, 3, okay? So, some of the drugi stup pension fund providers have a policy to refund 20% after a certain amount of years, even if you don't contribute for the 15 years. Check with your Croatian Financial Services Supervisory Agency, which now I'm going to say that in Croatian. Get ready to giggle, probably. Hrvatska Agencija za nadzor financijskih usluga. Okay? So, yes, I already told you all about that. Oh yeah. So in terms of the funds, so the first two are government funds and then the third one is private. All right. So I have 3 links for you. One is we have a very detailed guide on the pension system in Croatia. It goes into the 3 funds, kind of how they're organized, also everything about like how you contribute, when you get your stuff, like the different kinds of pensions you can get, disability pension, old age pension, if your spouse died, all that stuff. So it's very, very detailed. We've got that for you. Then there's a link to that Financial Services Supervisory Agency that manages the second fund. And then the third is how to track contributions to your second fund. That's something you can log into and check your balance. Okay? So that's it for the questions this week, guys. So let me tell you what to expect for next week. So next week, I'm going to Zagreb for the Croatian Women of Influence Awards. I won that award in 2023. And then this past year, I was asked to be on the jury to select the 2025 winners. It's a huge honor. I'm so excited about it. And so there's going to be I think an event at a museum on Thursday, there's a conference on Friday, and then there's a gala on Saturday. Also, I'm going to be going to Sisak for a day. I went to Sisak a couple years ago for the first time. I really love it. It reminds me a lot of growing up in Texas. So I'm excited to go back. I'm on this committee called One Croatia that brings together 30 different diaspora organizations to do community projects. And so as part of that, I helped pick some young entrepreneurs in Sisak who got a free year of office rent in PSAC, the incubator there. And so I'm also mentoring one of the winners as part of that project, and I get to go meet her in person next week for the first time. So I'm really excited about that because we've just been talking on Zoom for the last 7 months. So that's pretty exciting. So I will be doing 5 Question Friday from Zagreb with Cam next week. So usually she does first Friday of the month, but since we're both going to be in Zagreb together, she's going to be coming to this conference with me on Friday. We decided why not make it a duo. So that should be super fun. And that's about it, guys. So I'm gonna, chill out now since I drove 800 kilometers today, for the rest of the weekend. Thank you so much for being here. It's been such a treat. Hope you learned something. Hope you, enjoyed me keeping you company. And, I'll see you next week in Zagreb with Cam. So have a wonderful weekend. Ugodan vikend and vidimo se. Ciao!